on 10 ways to motivate yourself. So this is information that I've gathered from online, and it's also from my own experiences of having to motivate myself. So it'll be a mixture of the two. It will be recommendations um, from recognized sources, and also just tips from my own experience. Hope you've had a great day. Hope you've enjoyed your Sunday. Hope you're in great weather. And I'll make a start. So today we'll be talking about 10 ways to motivate yourself. But for some people, there might just be one way. There just might be one way of motivating yourself, and that just might be what works best for you. So obviously just stick to what works best for you. So I'm giving a list of 10, but if there's just one or two that you find works well, you can just keep with that one or two. Obviously everybody's different, so all 10 won't be for everybody. So the first tip I'll give on, and in motivating yourself, nobody should ever feel like you're a failure or you're not doing well or anything. In life, we all need a boost at times. In life, we all need to be reminded why we do what we're doing. And, life takes different, like many different forms. Life can be very unpredictable, and we may just find ourselves in um, a predict, you know, a position where we're actually quite demoralized, or sometimes we just may need a reminder on how to keep moving forward. So, please remember to like the live when you join, and please subscribe to my channel. So I'm just gonna get my list. Okay, so the first tip that I would give is to set clear, achievable goals. Um, we all have ambitions, we all have plans, but sometimes we just need to make make our plans a bit more. Sometimes we just need to make our plans into bite-sized pieces. So the first tip would be to set clear, achievable goals. Um, in some instances, we call these SMART goals, and SMART meaning SMART. Is for specific, meaning have very specific plans. M, measurable, meaning that it's not a vague plan that you can't actually measure as to how much progress you're making, or there's just no way of quantifying, of measuring the achievement. So S is for specific, M for measurable, I've forgotten. I believe A is for actual. R is for realistic. Realistic meaning don't be too hard on yourself. Obviously it's good to aim high, but just don't be too hard on yourself. So have realistic goals, and also time sensitive, I believe. So set very specific, measurable goals. So if I say something like, "Oh my gosh, one of my ambitions is that I want to be the happiest woman in the world," that's quite vague and it's not measurable, and so it can backfire in that it can make you feel like you haven't achieved anything because you've got no marker to set it against. So the first tip I would give is to set specific, achievable goals. That makes things a lot easier to um to monitor. My second tip is to break your tasks into smaller steps. So believe it or not, I'm a list person. Everything I have a list for. And so even if, if I'm at work or I'm at home, I will have lists of things to do. And the things will seem so insignificant, but literally I will have a list, and whether it's you know um, send and send this email, you know, get some groceries, book the appointment, um, no matter how small, I will have a list. Take the bins out, I will have a list. And as I do each thing, I will tick it off. And so that way it shows my productivity in a day's time. Everybody's different, not everybody does lists, but that's my way of breaking tasks down into smaller steps. Also, as well, I find that um, I can procrastinate a lot on things that I don't enjoy doing, or just just life admin basically. And so by writing it down, it's like I have I have to do it by the end of play. Otherwise, it's still staring at me in the face. So I work with lists. At the beginning of the day, I'll have my lists. Don't forget to do this, don't forget to do that. And as I complete each thing, I will cross it off. It also makes me feel like I'm being, that I'm progressing through the day and getting things done. Especially when it's something that you're not looking forward to doing. Having a list really helps. Hello, Busui Malanga. Sorry if I've pronounced your name wrong, but I hope you're well. I hope you're enjoying your Sunday. My third tip would be, and just let me explain this. So my third tip is find out. So everybody has their personal values. Everyone has their personal values. So in regards to your motivating yourself, if there's any way you can connect what your goals are, if you can connect so in what you're trying to motivate yourself to do, if you can connect it to your personal values, that's a good way to see it in a different light, and to make it more relevant to you personally. So if there's some way that I can connect my tasks with my personal goals, then it will spur me on to complete those goals, not just for my benefit, but also in order to confirm my integrity. So if you're able in any way, so I'll give an example. um, if somebody's just had a baby, and you volunteer to cook for them, if you look at your own personal values, and one of your values is to um, support your friends and be there for your friends, and just be an active part of your support network. By having that personal value of supporting your friends, you can connect it to your task of cooking for your friend that just had a baby. So do you see what I mean? So as well as breaking your task into smaller steps, you can also connect tasks to what your personal values are, and it could be long term as well, just to make it a bit. So if you have the ambition of being top of your class, and that's one of your personal goals, and it's part of your personal values, having to study for an exam might be less of an obstacle, because you've tied it in with your personal values. So another way to motivate yourself is to look at your goals, look at the things that you plan to do, and to connect it with your personal values. And that will also cement your reasons for doing them, and make it harder to procrastinate on those. So tip number 4, you can reward yourself. So you can have little milestones of achievement, and you can have your own personal rewards for different things you've managed to do. And so that can be another way of motivating yourself. Maybe you want to buy a new book by a favorite author, or you want to go and have a picnic. And I love having picnic in the park, or you may want to have a picnic in the park, or you just may want to treat yourself to a new outfit or a new hairstyle. All these things can be little rewards that you can give yourself each time you meet, um, each time you achieve any of your ambitions or goals, or take care of tasks which are relevant to the goal. So tip number 5, I would say to celebrate achievements. So some people look at the big achievement. Sorry, guys. Some people look at the big achievement. Some people look at the, oh, I'm going to get a PhD. So some people look at the big achievement, which is wonderful, and it's definitely a milestone when you do get to when you do when you have completed your achievements. But what I will say is that also celebrate the achievements along the way. And so if you're planning to take your driving test, you can celebrate the small achievements of perhaps maybe you found a maneuver difficult to do and it's taken you ages, but now you can do the maneuver without your instructor prompting you. That in itself is an achievement. So even though your main achievement is to learn to drive, little steps along the way, little achievements along the way can also be celebrated. So that's another way to motivate yourself, because each step of the way you're celebrating the closer you're getting to the main goal. So yeah, so celebrating the smaller achievements is very good as well. And it also shows that you're not taking these things for granted, and you understand that it is a journey, it is a process, and that the character building that's taking place is something in itself to be celebrated before the final celebration. Okay, so take your small wins before your big one. Um, Also, tip number 6 is similar to tip number 5, in that it's good to practice gratitude. Got some messages coming through. It's good to practice gratitude. So it's good to be grateful. Not every goal is straightforward. There might be some setbacks, there might be some obstacles, there could be some delays, but to have a, a grateful attitude is always a plus, and it's also a testament to your character as a person, that you don't spit out the dummy or throw a tantrum each time you don't get your way, but having a spirit of gratitude, having an attitude of gratitude, it can also be motivational, because you're looking at the good things that have taken place, not just the negative. Okay. So the next tip would be to take breaks. Sometimes we can be quite hard on ourselves. Sometimes we can be quite sometimes we can be in such a rush to sometimes we can be in such a rush to achieve things that we forget that we're only human, and we might possibly just need to slow down, and and just not be too hard on ourselves, because sure, it's great to have our achievements. However, we are also living life. There's beautiful things all around us. We have great scenery in some places. Sorry, one moment. Sorry, I just had a coughing fit. Might get some water. As I was saying, it's good to take breaks. I should probably take a break now and get some water. But it's good to take breaks and to reflect. on your achievements, on your journey, on your progress. If there have been any setbacks, sometimes it's good just to take some time out and reflect on those setbacks, and perhaps reflect as well on why those things took place or what the contributing factors were to those setbacks. But it's also important to take breaks. We're only human, don't be too hard on yourself. And also, your perspective may change during that break, and that, especially when you're studying, you know, obviously we want good grades and we want to go forward and achieve good things. However, do often take breaks and don't be too hard on yourself, and just try and not get too intense. Even though for some people, doing all the cramming and everything is what works for them, but just be kind to yourself. Be aware of your well-being and your mental health, and sometimes definitely as you work towards your achievements, definitely take breaks where needed. Listen to your body. um, Leading into that, tip 8 is to be gentle with yourself. Comparison is the thief of joy, as we all know. Be gentle with yourself. You don't always necessarily need to compare yourself to others, even though I do understand that by referencing other people, it can be all part of the learning process. But just be gentle on yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just know that as you do what you can and you continue to advance in your journey to what you want to achieve, that you're building your own character, and you're building your life. Basically, you are building your life. So do be gentle with yourself. You're doing well. It's going to be okay. There may be some minor setbacks, but all is not lost. um Number 9, create a positive environment. um some people may work out of fear. So out of fear of not getting a promotion, out of fear of not being accepted into university, out of fear of not achieving all they want in life, out of fear of, feeling like you've disappointed people. But it's healthy to create a positive environment and set your motivations for good things, and just say, I want to be able to hold my head up and, you know, declare that I've achieved this. I want this person to be proud of me. I want to be able to do what my parents couldn't do for themselves. I want to, I want to break some racial barriers. I want to, be the first woman to do this. I want to be the first man to do that. I want to be the youngest person to do this. So there's so many ways that you can create a positive environment in order to move yourself forward. You don't necessarily have to be motivated from a negative standpoint. It can also be very positive. The last one, number 10, I mean. So it's also helpful to document your progress. And when I say document your progress, you don't necessarily have to write it down. You may decide to do maybe a YouTube channel or a private channel just to document the journey, or you may have a diary. You may want to write poems, short stories. Some people may want to take pictures. An example is if you're trying to lose weight, and maybe every week you take a picture, or every week you make a note of how much you weigh. All these things can be a source of encouragement in times where you perhaps don't feel as motivated. You can look back and see how far that you've actually come. In my profession, reflections is always encouraged, and we're encouraged to reflect on, on our work, on our attitude, on our training, on our mentality, on our interactions with the general public. And when I've gone back to read previous reflections, I'm able to see how much I've grown, how much I've matured, um, and sometimes it just may be your thought process that has grown, but because it's not very obvious or apparent, sometimes you may not realize, or you may neglect to realize, that you're actually growing, changing, learning, developing. So tip number 10, definitely document your progress, whether it be pictures or a short note, or a video, or even a podcast. A podcast can document your journey also. I think as well, in order to motivate yourself, you could sometimes you can look at your options, and you can consider, well, if I don't move forward in this part of my life, where where could it possibly lead me? And by looking at the different options of your decisions, that in itself can be a motivation, because you could think to yourself, well, I can either get on with this, or I could end up, you know, in a place where I don't want to be. So those are my tips to motivate yourself. Um, Words are very powerful, so just speak words of life over yourself. If you have people being very negative around you, possibly try and limit their access to you. Obviously, this may not be possible. I mean, if it's your spouse or your parents, it's hard to, what you're going to do. You live with them. But where possible, where you can, if you can limit any negative input. And when I say negative input, constructive criticism is not a negative thing. There have been times people have pointed things out to me, and I've had to take it on board. And if I had just shrugged it off as, oh, they're hating, then it wouldn't have benefited me. So sometimes we have to be able to be mature enough, honest enough to say, you know, is this negative criticism, or is this actually criticism that could possibly help me? But it's just very, very painful to hear. Um, Also, as well, speak positive affirmations over your life. Speak good things for yourself. Don't speak negatively towards yourself. You know, have a realistic hope. I mean, don't just ignore all these red flags and just continue as you are, because you may actually need to tailor your approach to whatever it is you're doing, or you may need to regroup and re-strategize, or you just may need to take a break, to be honest with you. So be motivated, um, set clear achievable goals, specific goals, realistic goals, goals that can be measured in a time measurement frame. Um, Break your tasks into smaller steps, and so where a goal may feel quite overwhelming, or an ambition, you can actually break it into smaller steps. So you can say, well, I'm going to volunteer in this role, and then I'm going to take some online training to brush up my skills, then I'm going to do mentoring, then I'm going to apply, then I'm going to work on my personal statement, and then I'm going. So there's steps. Instead of the big, I'm going to study history and politics at Cambridge University, you can break that down into steps, and make your way towards that goal a bit more realistically. And it may seem less overwhelming doing it that way. Also, as well, as I said earlier, if you look at your personal values, try and connect them to what your goals are, what your ambitions are. If there's a way you can connect it to your personal values, that should also make it a lot easier to tackle. And when there are obstacles, when obstacles do come up, it'll be easier for you to face them, knowing that what you're planning to do is tied in to your personal values. And if your personal values are the same as your family, obviously they will be very proud of you. So that's another incentive. Um, so you can make your loved ones proud. Um, Reward yourself. I mean, obviously, don't be like me and say, "Oh, I'm gonna lose weight. Oh, I'm gonna join the gym. Oh, I'm gonna reward myself and go McDonald's. Oh, I'm gonna reward myself and get some pizza." You know, clearly the reward has to be, in line with what you're trying to achieve. But definitely, if you reward yourself now and then, it just acknowledges all. It just acknowledges the hard work you've done to get to where you are. So reward yourself. Again, celebrate achievements, however small you may feel. It's an achievement. You're going in the right direction. Um, Practice gratitude. Be grateful of your small wins. Just have a grateful attitude that people like to be around. It will just hopefully it will just make you less likely to become very down about things if at first you're just able to identify things to be grateful for, and that itself can be a buffer, against life really, in case things get really bad. But obviously, if you do feel really bad, you could always reach out to your GP, or you could self-refer for counselling, talking therapies. Um, there's a lot of support out there, or you could just speak to somebody. Um, be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself with your goals and your ambitions. Just know that you're doing really well. We're all proud of you, regardless of what your results are. Um, Create a positive environment so you can flourish in. Create a positive environment so you can flourish. Document your progress so you can look back on it and see how much you've grown. So you can look back on it and see how much, um, how much your outlook has changed. Document your progress could be taking pictures. It could be writing in a diary. It could be just doing a reflection. But definitely, we want you to stay motivated. You can use all of these tips or a combination of one or two of them, and just find what works for you. If there's other things you can do to motivate yourself, you can put it in the chat. One of the things that I've noticed as well when you're motivating yourself is that if you tell a couple of supportive people about your goals, um, that can act as in a way where you're accountable. So if you ever decide that, I'm going to give up on this, I'm not going to do this anymore, this isn't what I'm going to do, at least there's one or two people that can say to you, "Oh, really? You're not doing it anymore? Oh, that's a shame. I remember you spoke to me and you seemed really excited about achieving this." And obviously, ultimately, it's your decision. But I have found that when I have spoken to people about some plans, having them say those plans back to me has been a source of motivation. Um, that's all I have for you today on motivate 10 ways to motivate yourself. What we can all do as well, I would say, is learn from our mistakes. Sometimes we may try and achieve something that doesn't work out, and what we probably sometimes should do is take a step back, reflect, and take our learning forward in order to help us to achieve those goals. So use everything as a lesson. Um, use everything as a lesson. Be open to constructive criticism. Speak positive affirmations over your life, and just know that you're not the only person going through what it is that you're going through. But 100% document it in some way so you can look back on it and take the small wins. Make yourself accountable to somebody, so in your bad days when you decide that you want to give up, they can speak words of affirmation to you and encourage you, reassure you. Take breaks, reward yourself, celebrate the small wins, and practice gratitude and connect your personal values with your goals. Also, break your task into smaller steps and set clear, achievable ambitions. Thank you for joining my live. I hope that's useful to you. 10 ways to motivate yourself, and I'll see you again during the week. Thank you.